Imagine a man who seems to have it all. A private jet, a cricket league worth millions, a knighthood from a Caribbean nation. A man so charismatic, he could sell sand in the desert. This is the story of Alan Stanford, a larger-than-life Texan who built an empire. Not on business acumen, but on a mountain of lies. And it all came crashing down, taking the life savings of thousands with it. So, how did one man pull off one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history, second only to Bernie Madoff? It's a tale of greed, deception, and the allure of impossibly high returns. Our story begins not on Wall Street, but on the sunny island of Antigua. In the 1980s, Alan Stanford, whose grandfather had founded a legitimate insurance company, decided to take the family business in a wildly different direction. He moved to the Caribbean and established Stanford International Bank. This wasn't your typical bank. It was an offshore entity, far from the prying eyes of US regulators. The bank's signature product was something they called a certificate of deposit, or CD. Now, we all know what a CD is, right? You put your money in, it's super safe, insured, and you get a modest, predictable interest rate. But Stanford's CDs were different. They were supercharged. While regular banks were offering maybe 2 or 3%, Stanford's bank was promising returns of 10, 12, even 15%, year after year, like clockwork. How was this possible? That was the magic question. Stanford and his top executives claimed they had a secret, brilliant investment strategy. They told investors their money was placed in a diversified portfolio of safe, liquid financial instruments managed by a team of geniuses in London and Switzerland. It sounded sophisticated. It sounded exclusive. And for people looking to grow their retirement savings, it sounded like a dream come true. Stanford didn't just rely on promises. He built an entire ecosystem of trust. He hired a massive force of financial advisors across the southern United States and Latin America. These advisors weren't just employees, they were believers. They genuinely thought they were helping their clients, friends, family, neighbors secure their financial future. They pushed these Antiguan CDs hard, earning hefty commissions for every dollar they brought in. To bolster his image, Stanford spent money like there was no tomorrow. He bought private jets, yachts, and mansions. He became a major figure in the world of professional cricket, launching the Stanford 2020's tournament with a winner-take-all prize of $20 million. He landed a helicopter on the Sacred Lord's cricket ground in London, with a box full of cash. It was pure spectacle, designed to scream success. He even poured money into Antigua, becoming the island's largest private employer and earning a knighthood for his contributions. He was Sir Alan Stanford. It all looked so legitimate, so powerful, but behind the curtain, the reality was sickeningly simple. There was no secret investment strategy. There was no team of geniuses. The money from new investors was simply used to pay the promised interest to earlier investors. It was a classic Ponzi scheme, just dressed up in a fancy Caribbean suit. When an investor wanted to cash out their CD, Stanford's bank would just take money from a newer investor to pay them. As long as new money kept flowing in, the illusion could be maintained. And for nearly 2 decades, it did. Billions of dollars poured into Stanford International Bank. But all Ponzi schemes have a fatal flaw. They need a constant, ever-increasing supply of new money. And in 2008, the global financial crisis hit. The flow of new investments slowed to a trickle. Suddenly, more people wanted their money out than were putting it in. The music was stopping, and Stanford didn't have a chair for everyone. Whistleblowers had been trying to sound the alarm for years. As early as the late 90s, analysts were questioning how Stanford could possibly generate such high, consistent returns. But Stanford's powerful connections and aggressive legal team managed to swat away these concerns. He even sued people who dared to question him. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission investigated him multiple times but failed to take decisive action, a failure they would later be heavily criticized for. By early 2009, the cracks were too big to hide. The SEC, finally armed with enough evidence, froze Stanford's assets and charged him with massive, ongoing fraud. The scale was staggering. A $7 billion house of cards. The fallout was catastrophic. Over 20,000 investors from more than 100 countries lost everything. These weren't Wall Street tycoons. They were ordinary people. Retirees who had entrusted their entire life savings to Stanford's safe CDs. Parents who had saved for their children's college education. Their dreams were obliterated overnight. The stories were heartbreaking. People who were planning a comfortable retirement were suddenly forced to go back to work, sell their homes, or rely on family just to survive. Alan Stanford, the flamboyant Texan, the cricket king, the Knight of Antigua, was arrested. In 2012, he was convicted on 13 out of 14 counts of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The judge called him a ruthless predator who had lived a breathtaking life of deceit. He was sentenced to 110 years in federal prison, where he remains today. But for his victims, justice felt incomplete. While a court-appointed receiver has worked for years to recover assets, victims have only gotten back pennies on the dollar. The money was gone spent on Stanford's lavish lifestyle, funneled into risky side businesses, or simply vanished into the complex web of his offshore empire. The Stanford case is a brutal reminder of a timeless financial lesson. If it sounds too good to be true, it almost certainly is. The promise of high returns with low risk is the oldest trap in the book. Stanford's genius wasn't in investing. It was in marketing and manipulation. He sold a story, a dream of effortless wealth, and people desperately wanted to believe it. It also highlights the dangers of offshore, unregulated investments. The lack of transparency and oversight that made Antigua attractive to Stanford was the very thing that left his investors completely unprotected when the scheme collapsed. So, the next time you see an investment promising guaranteed sky-high returns, think of Alan Stanford. Think of the 20,000 people whose trust was shattered and whose futures were stolen. Always do your due diligence, ask tough questions, and remember that real wealth is built through patience and prudence, not magic and spectacle. The allure of a shortcut can lead to a dead end. Thanks for watching. If you found this story insightful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. See you next time.